There's been a huge change in people's lives in relationship to eating.
I love fast food.
It's built for pleasure, man.
It's built for you to come back for more.
Absolutely. When we're eating on a regular basis, the trouble is that insulin is always present, always wanting to move everything that we're putting in our body towards fat storage. So you are essentially priming your body to store fat.
Freak out. Freak out.
Yeah. When you're eating natural food, it's amazing what your insulin life would look like. All of it can almost completely be fixed by simply just...
South Park, Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
Your house needs to have ingredients in it. Okay.
It doesn't go away. For that entire year, as their weight went down, hormones are up here, and these are all driving you to gain weight back. And slowly, as the weight's coming back, the hormones are dropping. Almost to where the end point is what you would expect. It's to get back to where you were whenever you started. It won't be near the response hormonally, forcing you right back to the weight that you were before if you're doing it the right way. And
taking care of your health isn't just about the destination. It's about enjoying the ride with a little less junk in the trunk.
I want people to understand their metabolism better so they're not falling into the trap of, I want to lose weight this year, so I'm going to starve myself. That is not the best long-term route for weight loss. There's better means, and it's a hard, complicated road, but I think as people become more knowledgeable, they'll be more successful, and I want to see successful, healthy people on this planet. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining in to the Desolate Joe podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Adam Saucerman. I created this specific podcast series to be a relaxed and casual dialogue with our comedic and thoughtful co-host, Mr. Joe Williams, punctuated with relevant and lengthy dives into vital functional medicine concepts that can have a profound effect on your health and the health of your family. As always, feel free to check out our other podcast series and resources at www.desolatehealth.com, where we attempt to pursue and purvey the most relevant and cutting-edge health information in various forms to fulfill our mission of reconciliation of healthy living. Also, it is important for me to say that the content provided on this platform is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as medical advice or a substitute for professional care. I am a licensed physician, but the information shared here does not establish a doctor-patient relationship. Always consult your healthcare provider or a qualified medical professional regarding any questions or decisions about your health or medical conditions. Do not delay seeking professional advice because of information you have read or viewed here. Now let's get to it. Everybody, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. It is the Desolate Joe podcast with my lovingly neighbor, Joe, Mr. Holistic Joe Williams.
Well, thank you. I love how you said that. Every time you say that, it does make me feel good. I appreciate it. It motivates me to continue my holistic journey.
I'm glad, man. I want a lot of people to continue their holistic journey.
Yeah, it's a daily thing,
Yeah, daily grind, for sure.
Yeah.
How you been?
Been good. Here we are, 2025.
That's right, baby. Big 225.
First episode of the year. I'm not sure, when you're on YouTube and you're going to see my face or your face. Do I look right here and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Or is it that camera?
It's whichever one.
No one sees all the cameras, but things are going well. I'm not injured. I have not been injured in an accident.
Good.
So all that's good. Have I been perfect this year? No, I have not. When it comes to the whole health journey, but
let's just stop real quick, Joe.
Hadn't been drinking though.
Good for you, brother. That's a good thing, for sure. Explain to me when you say, I think it'll be helpful for the people. What do you mean you haven't been perfect?
Oh well, no surprise. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have little setbacks on your health journey. Now, preacher man told me it's not a setback. It could be a setup for something greater.
So there's some truth we should not, it also, if you're quoting something from the Bible, there's also this, it actually goes into the explanation that we shouldn't go screwing things up for the opportunity for the things to get sort of renewed or fixed in the long run. But the reality, I think a lot of people could point to a place in their life and they could realize that some things happen, but it's amazing how things got turned around for the better in the end, which is, awesome. It's an awesome piece of living life, I think.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know. Everybody has super motivated in January. You got all your goals. I don't write them down. I think about them. If I wrote them down, then I'd have to follow them. I'm just kidding.
Do you act on them? That's the question.
I've written some down in the past, but I've looked back and been like, I've accomplished ones that I haven't written down either. So I'm not going to get all hung up on a dry erase board I'm going to walk by every day, or if it's hanging up in my bathroom mirror. For some, that works, but for me, it doesn't. I just kind of get into a quiet place every morning. I've got a routine now, as you know on previous episodes, but I mean, for me, once I get through the football playoffs, NFL playoffs, I'll start to eat better. But I'm eating good during the week, and then the weekend rolls around. It's like Friday at 5 p.m. to Sunday at 8 p.m.
Sure.
It's just all hell breaks loose.
I get it. I mean, I think that a lot of people probably have their good days, and then there's some point in the week that there's a bad day. I just always encourage people, don't let Friday turn into Saturday, turn into Sunday, turn into the entire week.
I mean, I've been guilty of that. And that's where it comes into, like you said at the very beginning, us making a meal, the art form of making a meal and having that meal together is important. So we will do that.
I think that
over the weekends
sort of already pushes us right into, I think, the topic that we're going to talk about today, and that's getting after insulin and actually how often we're eating. People get so focused on calories, and I think it's probably one of the biggest traps that I see amongst people is they set out on this journey to say, I'm going to lose weight, and they automatically, because it's quite logical in the thought, I'm going to eat less. I'm just going to eat less calories. I'm going to try to, get moving or exercise more. And then that somehow is going to cause me to be able to lose weight. And there's a absolute truth or reality that people have experienced this. Every person has, that if you intentionally calorically restrict, meaning reduce the amount of calories you're eating in the day, you notice that you'll lose weight. It happens very quickly. And you'll lose quite a bit very quickly. But it's amazing how very quickly that short-term gain, it stagnates. And then almost universally, we always regress back to the mean, back to where we started. And there's a complicated process in the body that's happening, and it's just born out from our typical homeostasis that our body's always trying to achieve. But it sort of has this understanding of this is who we are. This is all the sort of proportion of fat that we have. And we sort of have these certain levels of insulin and sort of these other factors that are helping determine, like, this is my body sort of makeup. And it's amazing that people turn to reducing the calories. They lose this weight. The body goes into freak out mode. This is like clearly demonstrated in studies. One of the best ones was in JAMA. This a little while back, but they basically caused people to lose a significant amount of weight up front. I think maybe 10% of their body weight, maybe more. And it was essentially through starvation. I mean, I think they gave them 500 calories for a certain period of time until they got down to this 10 or 15% weight loss. And then they watched them going forward over the next 10 months to the next year. And what was insane is they could watch the hormones that drive us to eat more. And the hormones that basically that would do sort of the opposite. It's incredible that all those hormones get revved up in that starvation mode to where everything in your body is driving you to eat more and gain the weight back. Just like that. And like complicated with on top of all that is the fact that your body also will take its metabolism, because it's like, whoa, we ain't going to eat more. We're slowing this baby down. And it starts to sort of slow all your metabolic processes, so much so that it literally will drop your sort of core body temperature, because it takes energy to produce that core temperature. So it slows down. And there might be some byproduct of that. You're just generally less active and mobile because you're going to not feel as well, because you don't have as many calories and your body just isn't wanting to move or going to be wanting to move the way it was before. And so, I mean, your heart rate slows, your body temperature drops. It's crazy. It's basically, whoa. Try to conserve as much as possible. And most people usually hit this plateau, and then there's like nothing they can do about it. They're like, what's going on? I can't lose any more weight, because they're just trying to starve themselves into the weight they want. But if in the study, what was amazing and what every person, this is a landmark kind of understanding of your body, a landmark study for everybody to have looked at in their lifetime, is that if you look, it doesn't go away for that entire year, like almost coinciding almost perfectly with their hormones. As their weight went down, hormones are up here, and these are all driving you to gain weight back. And slowly, as the weight's coming back, the hormones are dropping, almost to where the end point is what you'd expect. It's to get back to where you were whenever you started.
Yeah.
And so it's a very telling or important piece of information to recognize. You think you're going to win that battle? Like your body doesn't sleep. It doesn't care. It's just on autopilot for homeostasis. It's going to continue to push you. And at some point you're going to get tired. You're going to throw in the towel because you're constantly hungry. You're always going to feel hungry all the time because your hormones are freaking out. They're driving you to gain the weight back. It's crazy. So anyways,
well, I think to your point, and me, I think about as far as eating and and how often people are eating now, how much more we're eating these days. Obviously, what the makeup of the food and everything, what's in the food,
Sure.
And I've always heard and read, they mistake that for being thirsty. So maybe you're thirsty, you're not hungry. Maybe you're dehydrated.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to drink some water and see how you feel after that. And some people be like, okay, BS. I'm still hungry.
Yeah.
But, your body's filled with God knows what from all the fast food you eat.
Sure.
I love fast food.
It tastes great. It's built for pleasure, man.
It's built for you to come back for more.
Absolutely.
MSG. MSG. Come on back and see me.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A. He.
It's years and years of study and trying to understand how can we make this person want this product more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that when it comes to food, there's obviously going to be collateral damage or negative consequences. And
collateral damage.
Yeah. Collateral. What's that one from?
I heard Arnold Schwarzenegger say that one time. Oh. That's not the best Arnold Schwarzenegger impression out there, and I'm not trying to be the best one.
No apologies.
But it's collateral damage.
There's some major collateral damage in that whole scheme, but that takes us into a point that I do want to make today and talk to people, and specifically about a study that I pulled, and I gave this to Joe earlier to look at. But it gets at this point of there's been a huge change in people's lives in relationship to eating, particularly eating opportunities or how often they're eating through the day. If you go back in time, look back in the 1970s and move up through to the 2000s, which is what this study looked at. It's a study out of the American Journal, Clinical Nutrition 2010. These guys, what they were looking at is they looked at multiple things through these big cross-sectional surveys. So basically they're giving people a paper and you fill it out. So there's going to be, and I'll get into the details of that, but there's going to be, I think it's not the best information in the world. The best trials or information is coming from placebo-controlled, double-blind, these controlled trials. Whereas if someone's just giving them a survey and they're saying, how many times a day do you eat?
Yeah.
How accurate do you think that's going to be?
Right.
Who's
not going to tell the truth?
Probably not supremely accurate, but it's something, and you're going to believe to some extent, but I'm going to argue otherwise. You will believe that whatever errors or bias was injected into, the original one in the 70s, it's probably still there whenever they're surveying people about, how things, because I don't think there's tremendous cultural change about just saying, well, I eat this many times a day. It's possible, but I don't think there's dramatic change. So I think most of the biases are sort of held constant. So at least it can give us some idea of what's the delta. Did it go up or did it go down? And it got specifically at like total energy of the food they're eating. But the one that I want to focus on, because it's the point I'm trying to get at and change people's mindset, going back to this caloric restriction, why it fails, and we're going to get into insulin and how we need to rethink totally about when it comes to weight.
Yeah, rethinking calories.
That's right, man. Absolutely.
Let's not focus on the number.
That's right.
Let's focus on the content.
Absolutely. Yeah. Quality and content. And the magic, timing. So in 1970s, which it kind of gives me some nostalgia. I didn't live in 77, but I was, grew up and I can see home videos of myself back in 87. I was born in 84.
Great year.
Life was different. Life was different in the 80s as it was in the 90s versus the 2000s. And I think most people that are old enough to be aware of that time frame, they're palpably aware of that. But if you looked at people, I would say that most people, sharp spike, how many people are eating 2-3 times a day? Whew. Most people, 2-3 times a day, they're eating. And very quickly, how many people eat 4 times a day, 5 times a day, 6 times a day? And it like sort of levels off and it's flat.
Yeah.
Sure, there's still like some outlier, 0.01% or something, eat 8 times a day, 9 times a day, 10 times a day. If you fast forward, and I won't even get into, the middle ground, the 90s, but if you fast forward to 2000, just the point to extract is if you look at the curve, whereas in the 70s, 30% are eating 30 or 3 meals a day, over 30%, a ton, like 2 meals, 3 meals, 4 meals, and then it's dropping off. If you look at us today, it's more like this. So where here's 2, 3 meals, it's like, so
we're back up to
so many people were eating more like 4 or 5. And
Yeah.
and the taper's still like 6, 7, 8, still going.
yeah.
So the area under the curve is much more pronounced, like way up on the scale. But there's so much more frequent eating.
Well, when we're talking 2 to 3 a day, back in the day, we'll call that back in the day,
Absolutely.
40, 50 years ago, people were having 3 square meals a day, 2 or 3. And think about how many fast food chains were there around back then? Or, just access to like snacks. I mean, I wonder what the grocery store looked like back in the 70s versus now. How many less aisles there were and how many less SKUs.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I'm thinking, okay, of course, yeah, I could see it. 2, 3 square meals a day. Boom. You got that. And then here we are in modern day time, like you're saying, 4, 5, 6. Now, is that number like meals or snacks and meals or just
both? Eating opportunities. So times that you're actually eating something during the day. And that can even include like liquid caloric intake.
Yeah, I mean, no one was doing protein shakes in the 70s, were they?
I mean,
No one's talking about that.
I highly doubt. I don't know. I don't know that historical fact though. But
just bodybuilders.
I
Maybe.
highly doubt there was much protein. Whey concentrate. This is the cleanest product. I don't ever seen any of those 70s.
Creatine monohydrate glycerin diglycerides in a powder form.
Yeah.
No,
Not happening.
You
I don't think so. I mean, there was some crap stuff in the store post World War II. We ramp
Spam.
up. We start getting real genius and think, oh, this, I don't know all the bad stuff that was happening. I should have a better hold on some of the historical, facts where we basically say fat's the enemy. But that was a little bit later, and then everything. It's like eat more sugar. Well, that's a great idea. And they went from like typical things that are saturated fats like tallow and butter, and then we need to switch to margarine and seed oils and some of this other stuff. That was there was plenty of toxic things and stupid ideas that were going on at that time. But still, this aspect of 3 meals in which the person eats and fills themselves up on, and they're sort of living much more of a breakfast, lunch, and a dinner. And that's sort of what they consume throughout the day. That's the vast majority. So,
real quick fun fact on that beef tallow you brought up.
Yeah.
I'm in the tallow game these days.
It's
good. I cook it with a lot of things. My alternate is avocado oil.
Yes, sir.
Or spray.
Yes, sir. I can't X on the spray, but
well, it's an oil spray.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any spray agent. I don't know.
There has to be. Always
comes out. It doesn't.
Do you have to pump it?
No.
Sorry,
but it just kind of like falls out of there.
It's going to have some bad like aromatic hydrocarbons or something that you're going to be inhaling.
Well,
the propellants are
good
bad.
thing is that's my plan B, so I don't even go to plan B.
Solid.
Plan A is tallow, but yeah, so that's going well, and I feel less guilty, and it works well with all kinds of things I'm cooking now. But the fun fact about the beef tallow, McDonald's, their fries, they used to cook their fries in beef tallow up until the early 90s. So that's why when you and I were kids, those fries were so good. Man, they were good. I got hooked on them, boy.
Yeah.
And then they switched it, and they did a whole switcheroo with some seed oils they were cooking with.
Cheaper.
From then on, of course. It's all about,
cheap and byproducts. We get all this, corn, and it's getting subsidized by taxes and government, and it's all of a sudden now where let's use seed oil. It's a great idea.
Yeah, but old KFC Junior's coming in. He's going to get, is he getting confirmed this week, next week? I don't know.
I guess so.
It's going to have a hard time confirming him, but let's go back to the square meals. I'm out in left field with Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams. I'm way out there.
Yeah.
Is this heaven?
It's a great movie, man.
Great movie. I love Kevin Costner.
You do a Kevin Costner impression?
No. I just love him.
Yeah.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah, he's a great star. He's had a long run at it, done a lot of great stuff.
So, 4, 5, 6 square meals.
Yeah. So this is why it matters, and I want everybody to hear me out. Whenever you eat, you're taking in, as a general, unless you're somebody who is hardcore fat and protein and essentially running a no carbohydrate, which, if you're hardcore carnivore, we'll say, and there's,
Yeah.
and let's say no fruits and no even carbohydrates from your vegetables, well, then it's a little bit different. You're still getting insulin spikes from the meat. That actually, you still get insulin from some of the other stuff. But particularly our meals, especially they're eating them more frequently, whenever you eat, it causes your insulin to go up. The reason it goes up is because sugar hits your bloodstream. Your body has to regulate this. It doesn't want sugar everywhere because it'll glycosylate everything. It's sticky and it'll get stuck on everything. So your body has to wind some of the sugar out of the blood. And it's set up to do so. And it does that by stimulating beta cells in your pancreas to produce insulin. That insulin comes into the bloodstream. And what it does is help move the sugar out of the bloodstream into the cells. The problem is that normally we would say if we ate 3 times a day, you eat, insulin comes, sugar wipes out. You go into this storage mode briefly where all this sugar abundance, some of it gets moved into muscle and other places where you're trying to oxidize it or just use it for energy. But the leftovers has to go somewhere because we got to get it out of your blood. We can't oxidize all of it, especially if we're eating high carbohydrate meals. Mm-hmm. And so then what ends up happening is we have to move it into, we store it, whether it's glycogen, but that'll overload, and then we're storing it as fat. So we will turn de novo lipogenesis. We take sugar and turn it into fat, and we store it in the liver. We store it in the fat cells. Mm-hmm. And so when we're eating on a regular basis, the trouble is that insulin is always present. So it's always wanting to move everything that we're putting in our body towards fat storage. So you are essentially priming your body to store fat, constantly store fat, constantly make triglycerides and put them somewhere. And ultimately in America, we have this obesity problem where people's livers are literally like suffocating because they're so full of fat. Even muscle cells, they're getting fat in them, which generally there shouldn't be a lot of fat inside of muscle cells. And, we're maxing out our adipocytes or the adipocytes in the fat, and there's like nowhere for it to go. And we start to get all this dysfunction. What's worse is people have heard the term insulin resistance. You've heard of insulin resistance, right?
I have recently.
I hope it wasn't because you're a doctor visit.
I heard it. Well, from you. You're a doctor. I don't think about insulin.
That's okay. No, most people don't. And that's why we're sitting here talking about what we're doing today, because I want to make people say, well, hold on a minute, and rethink everything they thought about whenever it comes in. I'm going to come back to we talked earlier about, starving ourselves to try to lose weight. Mm-hmm. We're going to come back to that after we finish up here talking about insulin and these meals. My biggest point is that our bodies live in this balance. And it's amazing that as we live more and more out of balance, things start to go awry. That's just fact. And so if you're eating on such a regular basis, and overwhelmingly if you're snacking, snacks almost always are processed garbage, processed high, like refined carbohydrates that make your blood sugars go up, which is going to trigger your insulin. And where before you would be in a place where it was like insulin up, a little bit of storage, you're burning your stuff, insulin goes away. And now, when the insulin disappears, the fat cells, which were before kind of like, okay, nom, I'll take on the fat, all the fatty acids or the triglycerides that are coming in, it will turn around and it will lipolysis. The fat cells will start to put the fatty acid back into the bloodstream to be used, because when the insulin's gone, that means the sugar's gone, and our body will turn to that fuel source of just fatty acids. So we run well on fat. So that's this constant balance of, we're kind of building up the little fat storage. It's like we have the storage in the muscles, then we have the storage in the liver, then we have the storage in the fat cells. It's kind of like the longest, biggest depot. They can constantly just keep putting fatty acid into our bloodstream, and we can just run on that. So until the next meal, when we get sugar again, then all of a sudden the sugar comes back, insulin comes back. And then when the sugar's gone, the insulin's going to be gone. So we need another fuel source. The fatty cells automatically start putting the fat back into the bloodstream. This doesn't mean, then I just need to starve myself. That's how I get skinny. Because that's the simple idea about it. And that's where people have got it all wrong. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, you're going to put your body in freak out mode, and it's going to downregulate metabolism. And all these hunger hormones and all these things are just going to drive you to come back. You have to understand that if the focus is truly weight loss, which I would say not to be as focused on weight as a number, but your metabolic health. Your weight will follow your metabolic health. I would focus so hard on being metabolically healthy. And as a general rule, you're way less focused on calories. I'm much more focused on the quality of the food so that I'm getting good nutrition, high fiber, plenty of protein, but I'm also always trying to make sure that I'm not running insulin 24/7. Because over time, and this has been studied, in the 80s, they took healthy people, put insulin on them, and within basically 2 days, these normal healthy guys could utilize insulin about 20%, like 20% less effective at utilizing insulin. So they developed insulin resistance literally in just 2 days.
Wow.
The reason why that all matters is what happens if you're insulin resistant. So if you're insulin resistant, the insulin gets thrown into the blood because you just ate sugar. Now all of a sudden your insulin, it's not responding to the insulin. So what do you got to do? You got to put more insulin into the bloodstream. Well, what happens the more and more insulin that you've got on those active sites that actually respond to the insulin? Slowly over time, they become more and more and more resistant. So it's a positive feedback loop. And the biggest issue is that insulin itself, these things become resistant, but there's other pathways that don't develop that resistance. And insulin activates these other pathways that are constantly driving the body to build up. And it's always pushing towards anabolism, or like building up fat storage. And also too, those high insulin levels, because you're developing insulin resistance, which makes you like have to produce more insulin, which produces more insulin resistance, which makes you have to produce more insulin. These high levels of insulin are coming across like your brain. And to some extent, we think that there's actually an effect of the insulin on your hypothalamus, which might be the biggest driver of that thermostat, so to speak, of your weight. So that you really, 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 really want the insulin to get out of your life. And as a general rule, when you're eating natural food that's free, that's non-processed food, it's amazing what your insulin life would look like in comparison. And I mean, it can all be fit. All of it can almost completely be fixed by simply just don't eat processed food, just eating real things. Mm-hmm. It's incredible, the metabolic profile of those things in your body. I realize it's hard to do, but one piece of this is that meal timing. It's good to eat and eat till fullness, but do it 2 or 3 times a day, as opposed to eating 4, 5, 6, 7 meals where you're constantly putting insulin into the bloodstream. It's like your body never gets a break from insulin. So it never gets an opportunity to start letting those fat cells instead. They're just constantly keep bringing it because insulin's triggering that. They need to be able to put fat back into the bloodstream so you can just run on fatty acid.
Well, I've heard about...
Is that way too much over your head?
No. I'm in tune, brother.
Solid.
Buddy, brother, whatever that means. It leads me to want to ask about anabolic versus catabolic.
Catabolism, breaking down. Anabolism is building up.
And how you exercise, and, so many conflicting stories about, what you should do. And I understand, depends on what your goals are. But for me, I guess you're lifting weights. Your body burns even more while you're at rest also.
Yep.
I'm not even doing cardio really right now, but I understand cardio is sort of related to anabolic. Maybe not. Maybe, and I'm asking.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so catabolic is related to more weightlifting. For me, I'm trying to, I don't really know if I'm trying to.
Catabolic is not weightlifting. It's the other way around. Anabolic. When you're weightlifting, anabolic.
Building
up.
Okay.
Think of anabolic steroids building up.
There you go. Anabolic.
Yeah.
For weightlifting, catabolic.
So you were thinking like aerobic stuff is more catabolic in nature, is what you're getting at?
Yes.
Okay.
So for me, I'm just thinking, okay, what do I want to focus on personally? I want to lift more weights.
Right.
You
want to get that physique.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah, of course I do.
You get the bump. You want the tell him
the bump.
Oh, Stallone's going to
talk.
What about Arnold? I mean,
Arnold that's a tough one to do.
Yeah.
I got to get the weights. I can't even do it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the classic quotes like I'm in the gym and I'm at home and I'm at the gym.
chopper.
Yeah.
Get to the chopper.
So let me real quick. This is great. I'll just take 1 second to talk about it. But everybody to understand, especially the guys that are listening, they are somehow, it's weird. The internet makes people afraid of cardio. It's a bad, in my opinion, something is better than nothing. So if you're just lifting weights, that's better than nothing. But there's something that's different about aerobic exercise that's different than lifting weights, which is generally anaerobic. There's great, like lifting weights will reduce your blood pressure. It will increase insulin sensitivity because it will upregulate to make your, the GLUT4 transporters. It does all these things to basically make you better at taking that glucose in and make you more sensitive to insulin. But so you have this other side of the puzzle where you have mitochondria, and that is that's the engine of your body. It is constantly churning. This is the thing that produces all the energy. Fatty acid, if glucose is coming in, the stuff, a lot of this comes back to the mitochondria. It's paramount. And one of the ways that you exercise your mitochondria, so to speak, if you want to call it that, is aerobic exercise. It's stimulating your body to produce more mitochondria and to make your mitochondria more effective at burning fuel. And if you're more effective at burning fuel, whenever you eat something, you're going to burn more of it. That means you're going to produce more energy. So you can have energy to do stuff. So I would tell anybody to not completely neglect aerobic, even if it's just one day a week where they spend, I would encourage an hour worth of zone 2 training. We talk about this, but it's at a point where you're maximally utilizing fatty acids. So you're at a point where you're not anaerobic. That means there's oxygen still present. You're working, but there's plenty of oxygen. So your body is happy to take fatty acid out of your cells, use it as a fuel source, and save glycogen and sugar, which can be used as emergency energy source whenever there's no oxygen present. If you need to sprint or fight for your life or lift the heavy thing, you're going to burn through glycogen and glucose because it can do it through anaerobic metabolism or lack of oxygen metabolism. So, I would say it's paramount for people to sort of stimulate and make sure they've got essentially good engines inside their body. They've got to exercise them. They got to stimulate them. And the best way to stimulate or exercise those engines is just simply doing some zone 2 training. There's also probably some benefits from interval training. These things can be worked out with, your nutritionist and your fitness person and your doctor. But, I would encourage any person, if I came to them, lifting weights, I love it, super important. I think for, current day, because most of us have jobs where we're not really lifting heavy objects or doing things to build up muscle. Mm-hmm. So we need to do that compartmentalized in our exercise time so that our bodies, when we're 80 years old, still have enough muscle mass to, carry our luggage in our book bag and move the chairs and do whatever it is that we need to do when we're 80 years old. It has all these other benefits, but to not neglect, I prefer like a zone 2, a little bit, maybe with your lifting, do some zone 2 stuff, even if it's 15 or 20 minutes before you lift, just to stimulate and exercise those mitochondria. So they're getting some use. Because what happens is we just don't use them at all. Mm-hmm. And then we're eating this terrible food. And so all this food is coming in as fuel to burn for the mitochondria. And it becomes like glut. I'm thinking of Dr. Seuss, Gluppity Glup and your Schloppity Schlop. Horton Hears the Who. Or not Horton Hears the Who.
Sounds like a warm-up line.
Anyways.
Gluppity Glup and Schloppity Schlop.
Yeah, why am I on the far end of town where the grickle grass grows? And no one is, except for old crows. What is the... Lorax. Anyways, the Lorax.
Oh, the Lorax.
Yeah, your mitochondria get bogged down and they become just sort of dysfunctional to the max. And then when that happens, that's whenever the cells themselves are sick and they're just sort of sick themselves. And that creates this body freak out inflammatory response because they're sick, nasty cells. So then it becomes inflammatory. And that's where you get in this pro-inflammatory state. There's all these things linked back to, I would exercise the mitochondria. I would definitely exercise the muscles too. I think both things are used. I struggle a little bit with the folks that are because of just pure aesthetics, they're anti-aerobic. I think because the benefits of your daily basis, how you feel is so good when it comes to including just a little bit. If you include even just one day a week of aerobic training, zone 2 aerobic training, that's heart rate. For me, that would be like a heart rate of 135-ish. And you're breathing heavy, you sweat, and it feels good, but it's like you could continue to do it for feels like forever. One day a week is not going to, again, if you're a bodybuilder, I guess that's probably...
Maybe for a bodybuilder.
It's potentially a bad thing, but I can't fathom there's many other people in this world, because the benefits are so great. Mm-hmm. In the negative effect, because it's only once a week, on your anabolism, or growing these humongous muscles.
Yeah.
I would say you want to back that up, because there's a lot of people, bodybuilders, dying early from, cancers, some of that might be the supplementation that they're using, the hormonal supplements.
Right.
But as a general rule, I wouldn't neglect exercising your mitochondria. So, and that's a great way to do it is through zone 2 training.
Agreed.
Oh man. I hope I've not wandered too far off the path.
No, you didn't, because that's exactly where I was sort of heading was, people are worried about running, if they're trying to, like, for guys, I hear a lot of guys, we'll be in there lifting weights or whatever. And, I don't think I've ever seen some of them on the treadmill ever.
Yeah.
And I've mixed it up, for January, I went in there with a structured, more of a structured program that I'm following.
Yeah.
It's something I found online. I thought it was a good fit, and I've tailored it to, okay, some of those exercises I'm not going to do. I'm going to find an alternate to do, because, my back can just act funny out of nowhere.
Welcome to your 40s.
Right. Right. I woke up, I looked to my left, and then I'm paralyzed for the rest of the day,
Yeah.
one of those things. So, that's sort of where I'm at now with my anabolic and catabolic experience.
Joe, since you're not my patient, I can't give you direct medical advice, but
I could hear it.
Yeah, for me, whenever I'm evaluating myself, I'm a pretty fit dude, low body fat percentage. I'm not as large as some people. A lot of that is probably genetic, but I try to do something at least once a week. For me, it's important is interval stuff, which usually is hockey, is what I end up getting my interval stuff, because it's very go, heart rate 180, and then like rest for a minute, and then go, heart rate 180, and then it's rest for some time. So these maximal sort of interval kind of stuff. And then throughout the week, I usually do some zone 2, and some days I'll do more, some days I do less, but I'll include a little bit of zone 2 because I know the benefits of exercising the mitochondria. So anyways,
playing the drums would be for me.
Absolutely. Playing the drums is awesome. I bet you if you tracked your heart rate, do you ever track your heart rate when you play the drums?
I've played, I'm not in a band or anything, but I've played practice sessions.
Oh, I've heard you.
When it's warm. Well, thank you. And I like the heavy stuff, so it gets your legs going. I have double bass pedals, so I mean, really, in much respect to the ones. If there's any drummers listening, man, and you could do double bass, and you could blast on that thing.
Yeah.
Man, that's been a lifelong journey for me, trying to get better. And you just need time. But anyways, the point is, heart rate will get up, especially if you're playing. I mean, I've seen a lot of live shows.
Yeah.
Those guys are playing hour and a half set. They're out. They're dog tired at the end.
Absolutely. So, they look at. I mean, I don't know. It's always the coolest. It's always the coolest looking dude out on the floor of the band that's playing as the drummer. He's
just wailing away.
Yeah, he's sweating, his hair's flying everywhere, and just beating it. And I feel like, man, I'm jealous. That seems like you'd feel so good doing it because you're so tired, and you're like, there's that physical aspect of it that just seems so fun.
Well, I'm sure they're on stage, and there's an adrenaline rush, and they are hitting the drums. I mean, for example, Travis Barker, he's a really active guy.
Yeah,
not a big guy, but he's fast. He's definitely. He'll show his hands after a show. I've seen like a video, and they're like bloody.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even know. You don't even feel it.
Yeah.
And I've done that times where I'm playing, and I'm bleeding everywhere. But
sure,
you'll hurt yourself, and then you'll just keep playing.
Yeah.
But, so that's definitely mine. It gets your heart rate up good.
The thing I like to bring it back to, I love the warm cozy. I feel like this is a Saucermanism or some philosophy stuff here, but. I feel like our world is so big.
Saucerman philosophy.
That's right. Here we are, folks. But I feel like our whole country and our whole world, it's so driving towards this dopamine access in the brain, so to speak. This very up, down, like yay, reward, dopamine driving. But I think most people know that there's this the warm cozy in the valuable serotonin sort of sense. Like when everything's good, you have like, for me, it's relationships. Not everybody's going to be very relationship directed, but whenever I'm on the couch with my kids, all is right. And I'm just so happy, thankful, grateful tends to put me in I would say a serotonergic state, just sort of content. I feel like that's the beauty of serotonin. It seems like so much more of a sort of thankful, grateful, contented state, and things just sort of feel good. Whereas dopamine, it's a lot more anxious in that dopamine vein. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's sort of wanting people to be more in this dopaminergic, or serotonergic. Where was I going with it?
Saucerman philosophy.
Yeah, I don't know what drove me. You're something you keyed up my interest, but
maybe it was.
Oh, it's the food. It's eating. I'm sorry. It's so simple. I get off on my own tangents.
The food and the serotonin feeling, the warm, cozy.
Going back to the 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like the real practical sort of peripheral things with regard to this. Apart from metabolic health, is spending time with somebody, even if it's yourself. Then take a second to sort of enjoy the food, be in your own head, allow sort of the serotonin to occur, like relieve the dopamine and the anxiety, and be grateful for who you are, be grateful for the food, and just sort of take time to like reflect and calm down. And I love that 1970s. I highly suspect that those were meals probably around a table together, most of them. Now the lunch meal was for the kids. They was at school. They were getting school lunch like the rest of us 4-year-olds.
They were at school getting the square pizza.
The square pizza
carton of milk.
The square pizza slop meat that used to be paper, and then I think eventually turned to plastic bags of milk whenever I think I was in there.
What?
Don't you remember
that?
As
a plastic bag?
It came in a plastic bag.
What?
You never had that?
I didn't see that.
Oh, man.
That was after my time. I had the carton.
Gosh, it seems like the more we talk about the past, I'm like, it's no wonder.
Dang.
No wonder.
Bag of milk. That sounds awful.
Our milk came in bags. Absolutely.
Yeah, how do you hold it? How do you hold the thing?
You just hold it as like a little jelly thingy.
That's
poke it. Still stick your straw in there. You hold the end of it and you poke it and then you drink it.
That's harder to do than a Capri Sun. What was it? Look, the Capri Sun?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Those things are annoying.
Those things, yeah. I never could stab it right, and it's leaking everywhere. Anyways, childhood memories of 40-year-old men.
That's right, man. But yeah, I feel like there's so many positives of that. One, too, if you're eating the 3 meals a day, especially together with someone, hopefully it's driving you towards preparing your food, preparing the food so that you yourself know exactly what it is that you're putting in the food and what you're making. Because I think we go to, restaurants, and if we could see and actually know what was going into that processed piece of garbage, we would be like, ugh, like we would not want to be.
You said freak out on this episode a few times, so I'm going to say freak out. Like the song that's been in my head every time you say freak out. Freak out. Freak out.
Yeah.
But yeah, cooking a meal, going to that point, my wife's going to, if she ever listens to this part of the show, somebody said the other day, your house needs to be an ingredient house, not or I forgot what the other
that was
term
totally
was.
Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
Or the South Park version of Dr. Phil.
South Park Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
Your house needs to have ingredients in it. Okay.
Oh, now you're the other guy. Yeah.
So and the other one was, I guess, basically probably pre-packaged or pre-made meals or foods or snacks or whatever. So if you have an ingredient house, ingredient kitchen, ingredient pantry, whatever you want to call it, you're putting things together. You have to. Mm-hmm. You have to, because it's not already made. And so as I'm getting older, I'm getting more into learning how to cook. I was never really good at cooking, thank goodness my wife, and you may see her Instagram page along the way. I'm not going to plug it, I don't want to embarrass her, but I might plug it later. We'll see.
Plug it.
She does a hell of a job. And she knows how to cook, and she could be an Italian woman one night. She could be an Asian woman the other night. She could be a Latina the other night. I mean, she is making every international meal you could think of. So it's pretty cool, when I'm getting more into it, even the foods that I know how to make, I'm trying to fine tune my, for me, my pizza making skills. I'm all into that. I'm a fan of it. Am I good at making homemade pizzas? No. Yeah. But I'm working towards that.
Sure.
I want to make my own pizzas.
I get it. Yeah.
So, anyways, it's important to to get into your food that way. Because you don't eat to live, man. You live to eat. No, it's the other way around.
Matt,
it's the other way around.
Matt, I think you got it backwards, bro.
I got it backwards. Let's go forward. Speaking of that, you want to hear my line?
I want to hear it, man. What do we got? What's our one-liner
Let's
for the
just
show?
lean into it. Zoom in on the camera. You ready?
I'm ready.
You got taking care of your health. It's what this line is about today. Ready? Taking care of your health isn't just about the destination. It's about enjoying the ride with a little less junk in the trunk. Woohoo!
I like it.
The end.
I like it. Thanks, Matt, for
Thank you.
making a debut here on the show today.
Well, you see, his commercials now are all Uber Eats
Really?
commercials, and
Yeah.
he's on a roll with the commercials. And I've always been a McConaughey fan.
Sure.
I would like to claim, being his little brother. That'd be great. We sound the same a little bit. Am I getting paid for it? No, but I'd love opportunities to.
Going back to all the stuff we say to make sure I don't leave people confused. We talked about starvation. You go through a period after you've eaten one of those three meals. I'm not saying that it has to be absolutely 3 meals, but there needs to be a time in between when you've eaten to the time that you eat again, so that insulin can go away, your body can go back to the fat that it sort of stored during that meal. It turns around, then allows the fat to go back in the bloodstream, and you're burning fat. Also, probably the most important thing is that the insulin is not present to the extent where it's driving insulin resistance and driving these buildup pathways. Because one of the pathways we're not getting into today is mTOR, that we're like, it's pretty a hot thing over the last, I don't know how many years that we've been driving on mTOR, but it's this anabolic pathway. But it doesn't really become resistant to the insulin. All these other things are becoming insulin resistant, so more insulin gets produced. But these other pathways that are getting triggered by insulin, they're just going up. Does that make sense? So these get resistant, so they're not responding to insulin, so they just need more. And it ends up just being dysfunctional. But over here, you have mTOR, or even the brain, they're just seeing ultra high levels of insulin, and they just keep doing what they're supposed to do. So it's almost like it can't get out of this state where it's constantly trying to store, build up, and be anabolic, which is bad. I mean, you think about cancer, people, so everybody knows there is a major association with obesity and cancer. Your cancer risk goes up, and almost universally, if you're obese, like the more obese you are, the more risk you have for nearly almost all cancer. Almost. Or we'll just say majority cancers. That state of anabolism, what is cancer doing? It's growing. It's that thing that it just wants to grow and eat and grow and eat. And insulin and these pathways are just driving towards constant anabolism, growing and growing. And it never takes the time. When the insulin goes away, the body goes into this alternate state where it actually cleans up. It goes through autophagy. That's a fancy word for autophagy, or like eat itself. It's intentional cell death. Then it's controlled. So that's kind of like we're blowing up old buildings in a controlled way. So the building's kind of like down and like everything's clean, nice and neat. We scoot it out of the way, recycle it, and use it.
Yeah.
Whereas if the buildings are just left to go, they're kind of like putting toxic fumes and trash everywhere, and eventually like the building just kind of topples and then runs into everybody else. Metaphorically speaking, where these cells are going in this state forever, where they should have been just cleaned out and got rid of and renewed. They don't ever get an opportunity to do that because we're always in this constant state where it's like we just got to keep building up, and we never switch the switch back over to sort of the rest, clean up, rejuvenate everything, and then get ready for the the build up phase. It's that balance. I feel like Matthew would probably talk. Got to have that balance. Something about the balance,
Of course he would. He would be like it's left and right, up and down, circular, balance. Time is not linear. It's a circle.
Isn't there a commercial with McConaughey in a car? It's a car commercial, and he says it's all about the balance or something, or you got to have balance.
I think he said, before you go forward, you got to look back. You got to know where you came from. He'd be chasing ghosts.
But
something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So the completion, and this is not like if you want to try to understand weight loss, We can get into all kinds of different areas and pathways with regard to weight loss and metabolism. But whenever you are trying to get into a state where you're going to lose weight and keep it off, not because you just lost weight, it's because you are now becoming a more metabolically healthy human being. It overwhelmingly, that's not done by freak out to your body of starvation. There's these periods during that, I'm talking about insulin, and then the insulin goes away. Sure, you have a moment where I get hungry, right? You haven't eaten for 3-4 hours and your body's hungry and ready for the next meal. But there's some magic that's happening during that little brief period where it's not enough to where your body now is it's breaking down muscle. The people that's worried about their physique, they're like, oh, I'm going to shrink up my muscles because I'm going 2 seconds without eating. I mean, there's something to that, but like that little bit of window, again, it goes back to that little bit of aerobic exercise. I would argue strongly that little bit of window is worth it, provided that you're just making sure you're fueling the protein. So all the protein's there. You can still lose the weight with that little bit of window to allow your body to do all the important things to keep bad things away, like cancer and fat growth and hypertension, all these other things that are built into this metabolic syndrome, which is bad news bears.
Just drink some water. You must be thirsty.
Isn't that a diet? Wasn't that a fad diet? Like the water diet?
Man, there's 1.5 million of those. Guy telling me the other day, I don't eat breakfast. I'll fast till, 2 p.m. Drink water. I went on a 72-hour water fast. I'm like, I'm not doing any of that. Not for me. Not going to do it. Not going to do it.
Yeah.
But, I might try it. I might try one of those little things and see if it works. But, I don't know. I'm just going to, for me, I have, gained some weight.
You have?
A little bit of weight. It kind of.
What do you normally float? You don't care to.
I say 195.
Carry it out to the world. What's your fighting weight?
Fighting weight?
Yeah.
I don't know. 180s?
Yeah.
I'd say probably 180s,
Joe, do you want to become a patient? Do you want me to enroll you in Desolate Health?
Sure. I could be
start working with you.
I could be the world's patient. You could be like, hey, let's tune into Desolate Health and see if Joe can be, Joe's the patient. Let's check out Joe's progress. Let's see how Joe is handling his weight loss program.
Sure.
Am I really trying to lose? I'm trying to cut.
That's right. Fat. I know it's body comp. You're wanting to increase lean mass, decrease fat mass. And that should be nearly everyone's goal. You want to build up the lean mass, increase metabolism, and decrease fat mass, which aesthetically is pleasing, but also is generally associated with good metabolic health. We want to lose fat. And we're not even going there today, but, going back to this starvation, and you look at people, there's some initial metabolic benefits whenever you lose the weight. The problem is the sustainability, and ultimately, what is the downstream product? If someone loses the weight through that starvation, you do end up losing quite a bit of lean mass during that process. And that was that study I talked about earlier in JAMA. I think it was 2014. It was persistent hormonal imbalance after losing weight. I think somewhere in there is the title of the study. I encourage people to go look at it. But, there's going to be a significant loss of lean mass. As you're coming back to where you were before, the lean mass as a general rule didn't come back. Especially this is somebody who's not trying to sort of exercise through this thing and really exercising and doing things that are anabolic to the muscles. Mm-hmm. So now you have this human being that was, say, they were 200 pounds before, and then they're 180 pounds, because they starved themselves to some extent, lose this weight, just a 10% decrease in weight. And then over the course of the next year, they essentially gain all the weight back. But what happened was probably a third, if not 50% of that weight loss at the beginning due to the way starvation works when you're just purely starving yourself of calories. So you lost 10 pounds worth of muscle. So now you're back to 200 pounds, but 10 pounds less of lean mass. Now, what do you think? You think that's a better human being that 1 year after? And that's, to me, what I see this sort of typical pendulum of starve yourself, you lose weight, a lot of it's lean mass, and then you come back with more fat mass and you tend to gain all the weight back. And this is the fearful thing, and doctors are talking about it, and a lot of people wear this with some of the the medicines that essentially are giving you an eating disorder, essentially making you to where
Oh, yeah.
they have other positive benefits, but there's the fact that you are going to lose so much lean mass whenever you're on those medicines, it's a real problem. And I would say that majority of people that I talk to, they are not doing these, incredibly cumbersome and expensive. I won't say expensive, but it would take a lot of due diligence, I think. And even then, I don't know if you'll be successful to be able to maintain that lean mass when you're losing that weight on those medicines.
Don't pay the price without knowing the cost. I said that before.
Thanks, Matt. Hear it one time. I want to hear it, Matt. Like, tell me.
Don't pay the price without knowing the cost.
Amen to that.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
I mean, when we're talking the jab, everyone's got their own version of a little jab shot. You're going to lose a bunch of weight. Boy, do you realize what is going on inside your body? And I mean, your organs are eating away. I mean, you're going to look good on the outside for a minute. And then you start to get that I call it the O face, which that was an old term for something else, but I don't even know. It's from a movie. Yeah. Sucked in, your eye sockets like go further in your head. I mean, you're losing so much weight, fat, and in places where you shouldn't. Yeah. And then you can tell, you're like, man, that person, some people I've seen, it's like, man, you were fine before. Why are you taking this shot for? And I understand it's for some people. Yeah. I get it.
They're trying to weigh out risk and benefit, and in that specific case with their doctor, they decide that the benefit outweighs the risk.
Yeah. So, that blows my mind. I mean, I'm staying far away from any kind of manufactured stuff like that because I'm Holistic Joe. So
I was going to talk about some other stuff, but I think, we've talked about a lot. We've probably saturated people's capacity to hear things. Hopefully they've got some good take homes and desire to realize insulin is a major enemy in our lives. And that is largely being driven by food that is, ultimately processed carbohydrates, shooting up our insulin levels, and timing that we're eating constantly. Like, keep eating that next sugar, that next treat or whatever it is, and we're sabotaging our metabolism, and we're sabotaging ourselves. I'm wanting people, if I'm talking to people in general, whenever I'm interacting with them, depending on what their goals and what we're doing, but largely the calories are staying the same. A lot of times we have a hard time keeping the calories the same, because whenever you try to eat real food, you will come to find out it is hard to maintain that same caloric intake that you had before when you're eating real food. It's wild. I mean, I dare someone to try it for a week. Figure out what they're like, document, food journal, how many calories they're eating, just whatever it is. And that's the processed thing, whatever their typical diet is. And then switch it up. Nothing but clean, like absolutely clean fruits, vegetables, meats, vegetables that are, they have carbohydrates in them. You can even eat some refined stuff in there. But if you eat when I say refined, I mean like rice or something that's a more simple carbohydrate. But if you literally get rid of all of those things, all the bread, rice, all that stuff, it is intense. I mean, you've got to
eating a lot of meat.
Meat, but you're also, like, you're going to have to eat potatoes and zucchini and squash and eggplants or, anything that has some carbohydrate. It's hard to get that same caloric intake whenever you're eating real food. It's wild. But ultimately, I think people will be blown away. You can essentially maintain the calories, but when you get the insulin down, the body quits storing everything. You get away from that state of an anabolic or anabolism and storing everything to where the insulin's gone. The body's kind of like, it can finally turn on to that other sort of turn the switch and go to lipolysis, where we're using fatty acid and our mitochondria is churning. It's crazy too how good immediately you will feel if you can stick with it. But that long term, the body response from a hormonal. I wish someone would do the study. It's not been done, and I can only postulate. I would love to be proved wrong. But I dare say, when you don't cut the calories, you just change the quality and content of the food. I would argue that your essentially those freak out hormones would be significantly different. I think that because of, adipocytes, they produce leptin. There's these things that are circulating in the central nervous system where there will still be some noticeable feeling in the body of, or something driving you a little bit back towards where you were, but it won't be near near the response hormonally, forcing you right back to the weight that you were before if you're doing it the right way. And that is, it's not starving yourself. It's changing the timing of what you're eating, and it's changing the quality and the content of what you're eating. Far more profound if you're actually trying to become like healthy, metabolically healthy, and lose weight because you're metabolically healthy. You're just trying to game the system and lose weight and starve yourself. Metabolically, it has some benefits, but ultimately you just end up getting washed out in the churn. You're going to come back a year and you're going to regress to the mean. And that's been shown over and over and over and over. Nearly every study they do with these things. It's crazy.
Well, I think to your point, you got to wean off of some of those agents that are in your body already. You think about the things we talked about earlier, MSG and some other kind of ingredients that you're going to want it.
Yeah.
You got to come off of that like you are a drug addict. I mean, because essentially that's what it is what's happening. So, yeah, it's hard for me. I mean, I'm call me old Sweet Tooth Williams. I mean, I got a damn sweet tooth.
But everybody out there
trying to manage that well.
Every Western American, almost. I'm sure there's some real unique people out there that, for whatever reason, have just been real good about what they've eaten, put in their body. But all of us are a little bit, if not wholly, to a little bit addicted to our food. Our food is so addictive, and it's such too in that dopamine access of like just getting high, and then you crash, and then you want it again, and then you get high, and then you crash, and you want it again, and it's a really ugly cycle. But we're all susceptible to it.
Yeah,
me. I mean,
yeah, no one is free of that. So, but yeah, that's about all I got, man.
Yeah, buddy.
But hey, we can continue this on 2025, the journey of Desolate Health.
Yeah, man. Getting healthier.
What will the next episode bring, Saucerman? What do you think?
I don't know. I want to ask George. George, what are we going to talk about in the next episode?
George is over there.
Hey, George.
Hey, George. What do you think?
Come in.
He doesn't speak.
Oh, okay.
And no, maybe people can comment on the video, watch, listen intently, comment on the video.
Sure.
And that can sort of lead the conversation to, because I feel like it's a great mystery to a lot of people about losing weight or losing or cutting fat or wanting to look a certain way. I mean, I'm not the biggest dude in the gym. I'm okay. I got chicken legs, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I mean, sure, I'm trying to work out my legs and my whole body, every muscle in my body. But I know I would be happy if I got to a certain point with my own body. I'm not trying to replace my body with Stallone.
Right.
I'm not a Stallone. God made me to be a swimmer, I guess, but not even a good looking swimmer, because not the TV swimmer.
Yeah.
Not the swimmers on TV.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of lanky.
Yeah.
So I got to work with that. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm trying to get wider.
Yeah.
But anyways, maybe we have people, we focus on, we talk about that.
I think next time, I'm going to keep hounding on this because it's 2025.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, are in the heat of trying to change their life, trying to change their
metabolic
diets.
talk.
I think we're going to be metabolic for a little while. Because I genuinely believe it goes back to like the alcohol decision that slowly over time, as you understand it better, you have a different value proposition every time you're faced with a decision. And so I want to keep saturating people with good information so that, they understand it better, so that when they have to come make a decision on this value proposition, is it worth it to me to eat this thing right now? It's amazing slowly over time as you become more aware of the truth or just the reality of its effects, consequences, so they're just fully informed. Then they can make a good decision. As a general rule, I think we will all move more and more away from these things that are driving our obesity epidemic. And that's a lot of this is the processed garbage that we're eating. I know that it's literally built to get you to eat more of it. So much so that if you look at it, it's so hollow and empty of nothing valuable. In fact, it's likely has negative things, but it doesn't matter because it has such a profound impact on your brain and the taste that you're just like, give me more. Same thing with drugs. I mean, it's literally becomes sort of like drugs. So we're going to pound on metabolism, and I want people to understand their metabolism better. So they're not falling into the trap of, I want to lose weight this year, so I'm going to starve myself. That is not the best long-term sort of route for weight loss. This is endlessly shown and studied. It's just not. There's better means, and it's a hard, complicated road, but I think as people become more knowledgeable, they'll be more successful, and I want to see successful, healthy people on this planet because it feels good, and I want people just being the best version. If you're better, my life's better because you're making the world around you better, which ultimately, some way, shape, or form is coming back to me and affecting me. So anyways.
Yeah. Makes everyone happier.
Love you, brother.
Hey, right back at you, man.
You're the man. Thanks for showing up.
Hey, enjoyed it.
Showing up, showing out.
Until next time.
Next time.
We'll see ya.
Desolate Joe. Good stuff.
Later.